Thank you for joining us back for the afternoon session. If you've ever stood on a golf course or something similar, you'll recognize that moment of trepidation, fear, matched with curiosity, excitement of the 300, 500 yards you have to travel from the teeing area to that flag way off in the distance. I'm not an expert golfer myself, but I constantly I'm fascinated by football and all sports, and I'm always fascinated that moment of connection when you strike and you decide to go for it. And you signal that moment of intent that there is the flag, I'm going there, I'm going for it. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get there, but that is my end destination, that's my end point. And when you decide to strike, you've done a number of things quickly in that moment, standing in your teeing area, which is you've had to consider, the known knowns, like, what are the pitfalls here? Where is the difficult terrain? How have other people tried to navigate this before? And then there's the known unknowns, and then as Donald Rumsfeld famously called it, there are the unknown unknowns, and making your comfort with that ambiguity. And there's a moment there of self-questioning and self-belief to strike and to go for it and say, yeah, signal of intent, end flag, I'm going to go for it. And then, as so often happens when you decided, yeah, there's the connection, you strike, you're going, the fog descends. And, I'm sure many of you have been there in your careers, in your job, or maybe you're in the middle of a product or a new project, and you find yourself in what Scott Belsky has called the messy middle. And the key to the messy middle, where you've already left the start line, and the flag is way off there, but now there's a thick fog. And in that moment, what you have to keep telling yourself is, I have to be stubborn. I have to be stubborn about that flag, that mission, that vision, but I'm going to be flexible about how I get there. And I'm sure many of you have found yourselves in the fog. You've struck, you've gone for it, and then you have these questions. And you have to figure out the ambiguity, and you have to be really comfortable with it. And I often think, particularly I'm a startup life, and I'm doing what they call the difficult second album. I've done a startup before, and it's about being comfortable with ambiguity, the shades of grey. I'm saying, okay, this is down here in the black. I have a lot of questions, a lot of assumptions. Well, how am I going to take this down so it gets to a nicer, paler color of something that feels authentic and relevant, and yeah, this is a known. And so with the messy middle, for all of us as leaders, we have to learn resilience. And that can often feel like endurance. You endure those lows, and you're trying to optimize the highs. And when you find yourself in the fog, that messy middle, a lot of great leaders excel. Because what you realize in those moments is that you get to be the window for everybody else. You get to be absolutely stubborn about that flag up ahead. But you have to be the window for others. You have to own the geo-coordinates. You have to be the energy transfuser. You have to give them energy, not take it from them, to navigate a way through, to make sure you are the person who's constantly monitoring progress and impact. And it takes extraordinary resilience, because good leaders are often those who can be reactive. We've all been there. We've had to stop the bleeds and plug the holes, but also then be proactive, look around corners, make sure we're being creative, problem solving, thinking about the next 6 weeks, the next 6 months, the next 6 years. We're having to be the process-oriented people, really excelling at execution, the gold standards. But equally, we have to be the creative innovators in our roles and bringing teams along with us. And the thicker you get into that flag, and often the flag feels further away, and I've been there. I've come to that teeing area, and I've struck a ball and said, I'm going for it. And sometimes I've known what that flag looks like. I've been really clear and stubborn about it, and I've signaled my intent, and I've gone for it. And often it's worked out. Other times I've stood, I've struck, I can barely see the flag through the fog, and still had the insistence that, no, there's a calculated risk here. I believe in it. I'm going for it. And there's been times I haven't seen the flag at all, and I've just had instinct, energy to go for it. But in doing that and being comfortable with that ambiguity, All of us often will seek then reassurance and feedback. You know, our instinct sometimes can be to get a lot of caddies on the team, our own, director and advisors around us. And sometimes you're in danger of really recruiting the wrong caddies for the journey and the wrong people around you. And I guess what's important in all of this is to bet on yourself at these moments. Get the right caddies with you, get the right outer mentors, but it's about your inner sensor, your internal Bunsen burner, and trusting that when you get to teeing off in moments like this. And what I've come to realize for me personally is that the change has been constant in my life. And it's taken me probably 18 years, everything I've just mentioned to you, and that resilience and trusting in yourself and being stubborn about that vision and mission and flexible about how you get there. That's taken me 17, 18 years of learning, because I was originally a teacher. I went into journalism. I spent 7 years working for Ireland's largest newspapers, working down in the Irish Parliament. I spent 5 years as managing editor in Storyful. It was the first social media news agency in the world. It was acquired by News Corporation. And then I went way outside my comfort zone, and I joined Facebook in New York as its global head of journalism partnerships. And I was there for the height of the misinformation disorder in 2016 and 2017. And I left all of that to come back to Dublin and start another startup in an attic over in Merrion Square and start again because of that sense of mission and purpose. And I guess what I would say to you here today is I've only gotten to that teeing area and decided to strike and connect and go for it because I probably have learned a lot about myself, and I've learned to bet on me and trusted in it. And the only reason I've gotten there is through a lot of thought. When I think back to my teenage 20-something-year-old self, and I'm sure all of you do this now and again, what would you go back and tell her now or him now? And I used to obsess about this. What job do I want? And I realize now I was asking the wrong question. It should have been, what life do I want? And I implore all of you to think about that here today and tomorrow, and as you go back into your workforces on Monday morning. How do you ensure you're happy in your work and happy at work? What are the things that drive you, motivate you? Is it important to you to be on the right side of history? How do you want to influence teams and companies and products and projects? Like, what is it that motivates and drives you? And it's taken me a long time to kind of bind it and figure it out. But I obsess about this now every day to amplify the why inside me and my inner sensor. Why do I do what I do? And for me, and it'll be different for all of you here today, but for me, it is because as a journalist who has gone on to be an editor, who's gone on to work in the biggest platform in the world, and who's come back to do another startup in Kinsale, I profoundly believe that we need journalism in good democracy so people better understand the world around them and can make informed decisions, that we need quality journalism in order to thrive as a good democracy. And as most of you will know, the industry that I love is in peril. We have a wicked problem when it comes to misinformation and mistrust. And you will know when you have a wicked problem from fake news, misinformation, and broken trust and connections, that is when it becomes incredibly complicated to solve. There's multiple solutions. And sometimes the more you try to solve for it, actually the worse it gets. But I've signed up, I've realized, for the best part of my entire career, because I believe that my purpose and what I want to do every day is to restore the connection between people and quality journalism and restore the trust that has been broken. And it was broken because the industry that I love decided to move fast and break things. And in the process, we went after more content faster everywhere. And I'm sure all of you have that sensation some days of, oh my God, I don't know where to start. There's just so much out on the internet every day. How do I find signal and quality? And I'm in a moment now where my purpose is to say, actually, well, what does it look like if I'm part of a movement that moves slow and fixes things, that is committed to transparency and collaboration and treating people that we are their servants and that we lead by listening in communities and we build journalism back from the ground up and we give people back control of their experiences online and that we reclaim technology for social good. We rebuild trust. That is my purpose every day. And I've realized in all my years it came back to that, helping people better understand the world around them. And I know that every day, and it motivates me to get up in the morning. But I had to, over the years, come back to diagrams like this. And I'm sure some of you have spent time with it. And if you haven't, take the time in the weeks and months to come to find your purpose. What is it in that center of that diagram that motivates you and enthuses you? And you won't be able to spend 100% of your time on it all of the time, but what does it look like to get to 10% of time in your company with your team to work on what gives you purpose, that makes you feel happy at work and happy in work, that gives you the life that you want, not necessarily the job that you want, that gets you to that flag, to that end line. And what have I have realized in myself, and that inner sensor and that inner Bunsen burner, I can only get to the teeing area, whether it's a career moment, a new project, a new product, when I trust myself. And I trust my instinct more than ever. I bet on myself because I know myself. And that might seem very simplistic for me to stand up here in a room of extraordinary women, but that has been my learning moment. And a couple of years ago, I was really fortunate to go to Columbia University, and this is one of the first things to start with, is your Myers-Briggs, and I'm sure most of you have started, but I obsess about it now. The 16 personality types boiled down into 4. And some of you in the audience are the busy beavers, and you love getting stuff done. A to Z, checklist, process, order, routine, and by God, do we need you in all of our companies. You are brilliant, you are masters of what you do. There are some of you who are like the owls. You love data and science and information to make decisions. And then there are eagles amongst you, the blue sky thinkers. You tend to swoop in with what I call batshit crazy ideas and then leave the owls and the busy beavers to figure out how to actually do it. Classic, that's what the flag, the end line looks like, and everybody else has to figure out how to get you there. And we need those people. I'm the harmonizer, clarifier, the catalyst, and many of you will be that too, the dolphin. What I love is bringing teams along with me, being able to say to them, that's the flag, everybody. We are absolutely headed there. We're going to have to do retakes. We may have to start again. We'll pivot. We may need new equipment. We may need new members of the team, but we'll get there. We're going to have to be flexible about it and being that harmonizer that brings people along. It has ultimately made me realize how you need to be that risk tolerant. You can gather information around you, but then sometimes done is just better than perfect. You got to step up, take your shot, and go for it. And so in all of that, I tend to schedule time on my calendar every week for what I call on the balcony. And it's a really simple exercise that I've tried to kind of really ingrain in our small team in an attic on Merrion Square, which is that, and I'm sure all of you recognize this, every day you're down in your trenches, you're down in your silo, and you're doing your thing, and you're doing really great work. But I'm sure there's so many weeks go by where you feel, God, I didn't really get to reconnect with what matters to me, what gives me purpose, what gives me meaning. And so I implore all of you, try and find the time in the calendar, literally put it on a timestamp on your calendar to do on the balcony every week. And what I mean by on the balcony is out of your trenches and silos and step up mentally. Put on the CEO hat in your company or your manager's hat and try and look externally with a different lens. But also then look internally to you, to your inner mentor, your inner sensor, and ask yourself these questions. And they're hard questions and they're difficult conversations with yourself, but they will help you find the purpose, they help you get to that teeing area, they get you to that point of going for the flag and saying, I'm off, signal of intent. And I've looked at a lot of other experts to help me ask hard questions of myself, to help me in that messy middle, in the fog, when you've decided to set out. And the questions are often the same. You know, what gives you motivation, purpose? Are you excited to get up in the morning? If not, why? Are you getting feedback that's relevant and helpful? If not, why and where are you going to get it from? If in some way you're not having those difficult conversations with a manager or with yourself, well, why not? Why aren't you challenging your manager and yourself? And if you're not getting the feedback that you would like from a manager, well, have you stopped and asked for their help and their feedback? If you ever find yourself going, well, the mission of the company is different to my sense of mission, it's okay. But if you ever find yourself going, well, is my work helpful or harmful? Well, step back from that and ask why, and ask, well, is that right for me, given that that is my purpose, my meaning? And if you haven't, I hate this question. I used to hate it, and now I've made my peace with it. What's your plan for the next 3 years? Nor do we know. We're making a bet on what we think that flag looks like. But have you all really thought about the life that you would like, not the job that you would like? So asking some of those hard questions. And meaningful work will mean something different to all of you. And what I would say to all of you is, I have 4 big words up there. And if some of you are taking notes today, write them down and start to rank them based on the priorities to you, because it will be different for all of you. For those of you who care about legacy, that is the evidence of your work as a leader. And for some of you, that's the beautiful code that maybe you write every day, and you're going to be proud of that and how it builds into the product. For some of you, the legacy is going to be that you built the team that built the product. That's still evidence of work, but they're different. Mastery. Some of you are specialists in areas and really owning that. Some of you are generalists, and I've had to make that piece and transition. I started out as a teacher and a journalist, like real specialist work. And now I'm an entrepreneur, I own a business, and I'm 20 different things to different people at different points of the day, and being comfortable with that level of mastery. Freedom might be the #1 priority for some of you as leaders, and be okay with that. And by freedom, I mean for some of you, you will feel like you can only come up to the teeing area and take that shot and go for that flag if you have the compensation that gives you the freedom to do that, and that's okay. Freedom for some of you might be working remotely, having flexibility of hours, but just know how important that is to you. And for some of you, alignment will be most important in your companies, in your projects, in your products, with your teams. And that's that feeling of belonging to something. Do I belong? And asking yourself that question. Now, you might say, well, that's all very well and good, and it's all very high level on you, and yeah, I'll find myself purpose, and I'm going to take some shots. Well, you know, how do I play that out? What does that playbook look like? And that's for you to determine with some kind of simple tasks that you can even start thinking about today. When you think about the less hard things as leaders in your organizations, or maybe you want to transition out to another organization, less hard things are having coffees with people you admire, respect, maybe colleagues, maybe managers in other companies. That's less hard to do, but still impactful. The harder thing to do, but of higher impact sometimes, is going to be to go to your boss and say, I would like to send you a report every Friday. It's going to take me 10 minutes to write, it's going to take you 2 minutes to read, and it's going to be my wins of the week, my priorities for next week, and where I need your help. I love getting those reports as a manager, as a leader in companies, especially the last part where somebody actually asks for help. So think about what that game plan looks like for you in terms of things you can do. Because so much of this, is outside your control. When you'll get promoted, how you'll get promoted. You can't read the minds of your managers. But there are things within your control. And those are the skills and how you use them. And playing that out and building your playbook and figuring out where you are risk tolerant. So in terms of the how, for me, over the years, here are some of the things when I've decided to get to the tee, hit, go for it, and then find myself in the messy middle. These are some of the things I've always come back to, and I'm happy afterwards to tease through them with anyone. But the first for me has always been this technique called LAVA, and it's super simple, which is leading with empathy as a leader, as a manager. And what I mean by LAVA is listen, acknowledge, validate, ask. And my tendency earlier as a manager years ago was to end conversations and go, I'll fix it, I've got it, I need to, leave it with me. So many meetings. And it took me so many years to realize, no, the art of a good meeting will be where I've listened, acknowledged, that is crap, asked some questions, and validated maybe some solutions with them, but put it back on those around me to give them the energy transfusion to go off and build and fix and plot. From to, and I'll show you in a minute what it looks like when I did it for a persona in work, but from to, I've used this so many times in my career with new projects, products, where I take a blank sheet of paper in a notebook or A4 sheet and I draw a line down the middle and I go from on one side and to on the other. Where am I now? Or where is the project now? Or where is this persona, this customer? Where are they now? Where am I trying to bring them to? And that is so simple, but I can't tell you how profoundly effective it is when you do it for yourself or a product or a customer or something you're really trying to weed through. Because out of that, I'm someone who's obsessed then with kind of the order in the chaos. Again, I know the flag, that's where I'm trying to get. And I often write up a one-sentence right, that's the flag, that's where I'm headed. And then I'll have like 4 or 5 strategies. And then I'll have maybe 20 tactics to implement the 4 or 5 strategies. And it ends up looking like a strategy tree. And it helps you give that resilience, that order in the chaos. And out of that, Intercom, and many of you will be familiar with it here in Dublin, when it comes to their roadmaps, they often think about 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years. And I'm trying to challenge myself when it comes to the company, the team, and my own self. So 3 parts to that. What's the influence, the role of the company in the world? How's the team connecting into that? And what's my role in it? And plotting it out 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years. It becomes much more tangible, short-term, medium-term, long-term. And if I can recommend one book to all of you that's had a profound impact on my own life, it's a book called Playing Big by Tara Moore. And it is a fascinating book because I'm sure it'll speak to many of you about this idea of an inner critic. And your inner critic is like a sleeping guard that sits at the end of your comfort zone. And it's constantly saying, oh, you don't have that skill. And you look at a job advertisement, and you've seen this, and all the research shows, you look at the job advertisement, woman goes, oh, I only have 3 out of the 10 skills that they need. Man goes, sorry men in the audience, but it is scientifically proven, man goes, I have 3 out of 10, I will apply. And so there's this inner critic all the time trying to kind of bounce us back, put us back down beyond the comfort zone, and plays into our anxieties and our worst fears and worst case scenarios. And what Tara Moore is all about is trying to get past that sleeping guard, past your comfort zone, and listening to your inner mentor, that inner sensor, that Bunsen burner I was talking about at the beginning, and listening to your sense of purpose. And it is a brilliant book because it speaks to women in terms of the 2 fears. So you have that fear that is about the worst case scenarios, and you're rationalizing them and the what ifs. And she kind of plays it out of, well, what is the worst that could happen if you decide to go for it? Because there is another type of fear, and there's a good fear, which is awe and wonderment. And it's the part of you 20 years hence, your inner mentor. Well, what would she tell you to do? Would she tell you to strike, plot the ball, and go for it? So book recommendation for the day. And for me then, I've come upon this formula a few years ago, and I come back to it when it comes to career or product and thinking about building things from the outside in, which is a lot of you are change agents. You're trying to change something, whether it's consumer behaviors or build new technology. You're trying to change something somewhere. But in order to change, yeah, you can have the V, so it's called DVP. You can have vision, you can have process. But if you don't understand what makes the consumer dissatisfied or your boss dissatisfied or makes you dissatisfied, you don't have that third ingredient. So you can only affect change and have a DVP when you understand dissatisfaction and have a vision and a process to match. And all of that then only makes sense when you make time for you and reconnecting with that inner sensor up on the balcony an hour a week, asking those hard questions, asking yourself what gives you meaning and purpose. This for me was one of those moments this year or last year when I did a from to, where do people feel now about their news? And we went through it, we ended up with a list of 50 things that people were fed up about. And this was game-changing for us and we left it on our whiteboard for the best part of a year. But that's what I mean by it. Really simple exercise, could be for you, could be for a persona, a product, a project. And in all of that, when you are out in that messy middle and trying to build that resilience and enduring the lows and optimizing the highs and trying to be stubborn about where you're headed and flexible about how you get there and reconnecting with your mission and vision and principles and purpose, it's to know that there are some anchors. And this is what gives you anchors in those tough decisions and seeing it through is all of you have assets. List them down someday. Your skills, your abilities, your specialism, what it is you own. Number 2, what are your aspirations? You own them too. What are your goals, your motivations, your principles, the things, the life that you want? And then 3, make sure those 2 things connect to the market realities. All of you, there are companies and bosses who need you, who need those assets and need your aspirations. And those are the 3 things. They are interconnected, they interplay all the time, and they anchor you in the moments of fog and that messy middle. And just to know it and be confident about it. Because storms do part. And I've seen Reid Hoffman and other people talk about it. It is the people who care and love and are passionate about their jobs do best. They work smarter, they work better. And he would almost say fact, it's not people motivated by sheer compensation. That is not what is going to get you to that end flag. And it's to have the trust in you that that fog, that thick fog, that messy middle, it does have an end. We all get to the flag at some point. And as I say, you might do retakes and redos, you might need new equipment, you might have to go back to the very start, rethink the strategy. But all of us get there. It's having the confidence to say to yourself and to others around you, signal of intent, that's the flag, that's where I'm headed, and I'm going to bet on me. Thank you for your attention, everybody.